He unified the Rus territories and tripled the boundaries of the empire. He transformed Kievan Rus into the most powerful state in Europe. He converted our ancestors to the Christian faith. With this, he shaped the future of Ukraine. Saint equal to the apostles. Prince Volodymyr is a ruler who is regarded as great and just. But few people know that this individual was not always like that. He remained a cruel tyrant for most of his life. He was also a fervent pagan. He worshipped the war god Perun, offering him human sacrifices. After his baptism, he did not dissolve his harems and cease making sacrifices. He converted to faith solely due to a woman who transformed him and the entirety of Rus. Incredibly, this fact remained unknown for centuries. The sensational truth about Volodymyr is only being revealed now. In 2009, Ukrainian scientists made a significant discovery. Ancient frescoes were discovered during the restoration of St. Sophia Cathedral in Kyiv. These frescoes date back to the early Christian era, during the reign of Volodymyr the Great. The researchers' findings challenged the traditional understanding of ancient Ukrainian history.
During the restoration of this cathedral, scientists discovered the number 1018 beneath a layer of paint. This is the actual year the temple was constructed. It turns out that it was not constructed by Yaroslav the Wise, as previously believed, but by his father Volodymyr the Great. He did it in honor of his wife Anna, a Christian woman from Byzantium.
The mystery of the baptism of Kyivan Rus. We could be Muslims and stand against the non-believers. Or we could convert to Catholicism and endure the horrors of the Inquisition in the Middle Ages. How and why did our ancestors actually convert to the Orthodox faith? Why do we attribute this grand event not to the equal to the apostles Prince Volodymyr, but to his lesser-known wife, Anna the Byzantine? Byzantium, Neviatideron Sariosum. The field was red with blood. There were moans and screams everywhere. These were the injured who pleaded for mercy. But their cries only incited the belligerent Ruthenians. They praised their prince. Volodymyr led them to victory again. Now he personally tormented the leader. A defiant Byzantine general, a man who instilled fear in all of Byzantium. The man who nearly seized control of the capital, Constantinople, and almost became the new emperor. However, the Rus prince proved to be stronger. He quelled the rebellion, suppressed it with force, and saved the rightful emperor. Of course, it's not free. Volodymyr was now waiting for a reward. The emperor promised him gold and jewels. And most importantly, his sister Anna. A woman who is more valuable than all the treasures in the world. After all, marrying her could change everything. It would have transformed Volodymyr into a true Tsar. This would make him a blood relative of the emperor's. Although now weakened by conflict, they are still powerful. French, German, and Spanish rulers dreamed of kinship with the Byzantines. But the noble princess rejected everyone. Only Volodymyr will have his way and marry Anna. From an obscure barbarian prince, he will rise to become a true Tsar, finally gaining worldwide recognition.
Byzantium served as a direct extension of the Roman Empire, preserving its core essence. Constantinople is the center of the world, the largest and most spectacular city, as well as the richest. New York, so to speak. Medieval New York and Washington. But of course, marrying the emperor's sister was the ultimate prize. It was the most Volodymyr could have hoped for.
This was meant to transform him from a mere prince into a true king. And he will achieve his goal. For the first time in the history of Rus, coins were struck during the reign of Volodymyr. They portray a prince wearing a crown and holding a scepter in his hand. However, Volodymyr will still have to make a lot of sacrifices to achieve these attributes.
Volodymyr entered the throne room and was taken aback in surprise. Golden bowls and stones were everywhere. Meanwhile, the emperor rushed to him, but without his sister. Where is Anna? Why isn't she in the hall? Volodymyr was standing guard. What he heard in an instant struck him to the core. Anna does not want to get married. A noble Orthodox princess refuses to marry a pagan. They say he is no match for the old Byzantine family. The prince turned pale, and his temples throbbed loudly. He was humiliated. He was still laughed at, even after he became the all-powerful ruler of Rus. Again and again, everything was the same as before. 970, Kyiv. He watched intently and was afraid to move. He knew he would lose. There was nothing he could do against the two brothers. He could only stand meekly and listen to their abuse. His brothers spat in his face and called him scum. The son of a servant girl must be humble and submissive. Volodymyr did not respond, and then he felt a hit on his back. The boy fell to the ground and desperately shielded himself with his hands. He regained consciousness after several hours, lying in a pool of blood, helpless and lonely. He won't say anything to his father. He will choose to seek revenge himself and will do so very cruelly. So the brothers would understand whom they had offended.
The time will come, and Volodymyr will keep his promise. He will assemble an army of Viking mercenaries and ruthlessly slay his brothers. He will take control and become Ukraine's only leader. Only memories of humiliation will haunt him for the rest of his life.
Volodymyr gazed into the eyes of the Byzantine emperor. A familiar hatred surged within him, dark and burning. This Byzantine humiliated him. He made Volodymyr feel stupid. Volodymyr will not forget the offense. He will take revenge. How he once got back at his brothers. Chersonesus 988. Volodymyr growled like a wild beast. He accomplished this, triumphed, and seized the most prosperous and wealthy Byzantine city in Crimea. He made him mimic men's voices, weep with women's tears, and wail with the cries of babies. But for the prince, these sounds were like music. Let the emperor discover what the Ukrainian is capable of. Indeed, the Russian prince does not have noble ancestry, but he has a formidable army and knows how to assert his will. Princess Anna would be his, regardless of the cost. He could withdraw, forget about marrying a Byzantine woman. However, the feelings of insult and humiliation, familiar to him since childhood, did not subside. For many years, it guided Volodymyr, propelled him forward, and led him to his dream victory.
Indeed, during the reign of Volodymyr I Sviatoslavovich, sacrifices were conducted, including human ones. Indeed, as a result of the pagan reform that he himself initiated, Perun became the primary deity of the Slavic pantheon. He portrayed Perun not only as a thunderer, but also as a patron of war. And the god of war demands human sacrifices. We can find confirmation of this in the tale of bygone years. There are 2 instances of it. As for external validation, this is a German chronicle, which is called Chronicle.
Soon, the scared Byzantine ruler will send a letter to the prince. Princess Anna is going to marry Volodymyr. Only the Prince of Rus should be baptized himself and convert his state to the faith. Otherwise, this alliance will never gain global recognition. And Volodymyr agreed. He will meet the condition of the Byzantine Empire if the prince's claim to the throne of Kyiv is recognized as legitimate. Of course, he will do this only in formality, remaining loyal to the one god, Perun.
When Christianity was adopted, Rus was considered an outcast in the flock. There have long been nations around us that practiced world religions. Islam developed in the east. In the south, there was the powerful Christian Byzantium. Only Rus remained barbaric and was therefore ostracized. Non-Jews could be attacked, neglected, and insulted. Volodymyr understood this, so he decided to baptize Rus. This resulted in both recognition and a military alliance with Byzantium.
The chronicle recounts the fact that Volodymyr pondered for a long time about which religion to choose. But actually, maybe, Volodymyr had no choice. For 150 years, Byzantium was the political counterpart of Rus.
Kyiv, 988. Volodymyr celebrated this as his main victory. The sister of the Byzantine Emperor Anna, a woman who will make him a true king. She will give Volodymyr, the illegitimate one, what he has dreamed of all his life: respect, honor, and global recognition. Meanwhile, the priest finished reciting the prayer. He allowed the prince to kiss his wife. Volodymyr could barely control his heartbeat. Finally, it happened. From this point forward, he is part of the family of the world's most powerful monarchs. After the banquet, the inebriated and exhilarated prince hastened to his wife. How much effort he put in to win this woman over. Now is the time to seize the victory. Volodymyr approached the princess. Anna held the stiletto in her hand. There was not a shadow of fear in her eyes. The delicate princess laughed in his face. Barbarian, savage, Volodymyr was rendered speechless due to rage. If the man had dared to utter those words, he would have been dead a long time ago.
Shut up!
But what to do now? That night, the bewildered and embarrassed prince made a vow. He will seek revenge on this arrogant princess in a different way. Because no one had the right to ridicule him.
He was generally unlucky in marriages. His first wife was Rogneda, the daughter of the Prince of Polotsk. She also rejected him, simply because he was the son of a slave. Volodymyr embarked on a military campaign to Polotsk. He conquered the city and forcibly took Rogneda into his possession. Anna is the second woman who rejected him.
Anna tossed and turned in bed. She had a nightmare. Rivers of blood, moans of the wounded, and her savage husband standing atop a mountain of bodies. She arose, feeling a strong thirst, and called for the servants, but no one responded. She staggered out and heard human voices and laughter at the end of the hallway. She went towards the noise, but when she opened the door, she nearly fell. Naked bodies writhed on soft sheets. Anna was horrified. It was Volodymyr's voice. Suddenly he smiled wryly and waved at her. This gesture seemed to bring her back to her senses. Anna could barely hold back her tears. She was ashamed and scared at the same time.
Indeed, harems were viewed as normal among pagans. All Rus princes had them. The only thing that set Volodymyr apart was the number of his concubines. A royal palace once stood here, on the site of today's 10th Street. And according to Arab chronicles, between 40 and 400 concubines resided there with Volodymyr, who were the prince's favorites. In addition to them, according to Nestor the chronicler, the Rus' leader had 800 concubines. They lived in 3 cities, Vyshgorod, Belgrade, and Berest. However, the girls from that place were less fortunate than the girls from Kyiv. Often they had to wait for the prince for years.
When the princess ran away, Volodymyr laughed. It turns out that this proud Byzantine individual was easily offended. He unintentionally took revenge on her, and Volodymyr realized with surprise he would gladly exchange the company of all these women for the embrace of one. The more Volodymyr thought about Anna, the more he became convinced that the princess would have to atone for the insult. And eventually she will comply. And he, the great prince, already knew how.
Kyiv will forever remember the next day. There, beyond the footbridge, where the Dnipro and Pochina once converged, there Volodymyr baptized and admonished everyone. He who does not arrive will be considered my enemy. He kept his word. That day the sky over Kyiv was gray from the smoke of burning buildings.
Anna looked and could not believe her eyes. Hundreds of Ruthenians, like a herd of cattle, were heading towards the water. The prince's guards pursued them with spears, but those who did not arrive were even worse. Volodymyr raised his hand, and the soldiers ignited the nearest house. The people refused to be baptized, so the prince commanded them to be burnt. Volodymyr stood with a stoic expression. However, a storm was raging within the prince's soul. He set fire to the homes of Kyiv residents to appease a foreign deity, but there was no other way out. He decided to build an empire and attain its recognition. And he will not back down from this goal. He had already made enough sacrifices. And these people were also supposed to become payers. In honor of the future of Rus and its Tsar Volodymyr, he will be known and feared.
Christianity offered Volodymyr much more than the traditional pagan beliefs. Indeed, Christianity instantly elevated the prince to an unreachable height. This legitimized his power by higher authorities.
Anna was awakened by loud screams coming from somewhere nearby. She knew that Volodymyr had returned from another military campaign. Now he is celebrating his victory, but when she looked out the window, she shivered. A bonfire was blazing in the courtyard, and in the center stood the idol of Perun. Anna ran downstairs. Volodymyr's vigilantes brandished their weapons and shouted something as if they were gearing up for some sort of spectacle. Suddenly the crowd parted, and Anna saw the soldiers leading the tied-up prisoner to the stake. The princess's eyes darkened. She understood that the unfortunate man was going to be sacrificed. The princess rushed towards the soldiers, 1, 2, 3, but it was in vain. Large Ukrainians, as if hypnotized, shouted words she did not understand. They did not notice anything. Suddenly, Anna spotted her husband in the crowd, who was already raising his sword over the prisoner. The princess, like a madwoman, rushed to the prince and shouted, "Volodymyr shouldn't do that. He has converted to Christianity and must contemplate his soul." Volodymyr froze. The voices of the vigilantes have also quieted down. Anna felt that she could convince her husband. But how? What should she do? In desperation, she found the only way out. She decided to do something she had never done before in front of everyone. Stunned, Volodymyr froze. He had no idea that a proud Byzantine woman was capable of such a thing. For the first time in his life, Volodymyr was stunned and hesitated. His wife's desperate act unexpectedly made him more compassionate. But yielding to her meant showing weakness. In the eyes of his subjects. No, this cannot be allowed. The captive fell dead in an instant. Prince Rus once again expressed his gratitude to the god of war. But he made it clear to the soldiers that nothing had changed. Perun has been and will always be their god. He will continue to protect the Ruthenians from enemy attacks. He will continue to provide them with such exhilarating victories.
Of course, in such a short span of time, Volodymyr could not renounce the pagan traditions that he had been brought up with since childhood. Accordingly, it took him a considerably long period of time to abandon human sacrifices and truly embrace Christianity.
Indeed, belief in Perun was a significant aspect of Volodymyr's domestic policy. The prince realized that he could not take away this belief from the soldiers, as they might revolt. The prince decided to place a small idol near the palace. This was done in order to continue making sacrifices to him.
That night, Anna prayed more fervently than ever. She no longer requested to be taken back to her homeland. She reconciled herself to the fact that she would never again set foot in her beloved St. Sophia Cathedral in her native Constantinople. She asked God for only one thing, to give her strength. She did not know the reason why fate had treated her so cruelly. This led to the end of life in this pagan wilderness. But she knew exactly what she had to do now. Depressed and unhappy, Anna decided that if she was not destined to marry her lover and become a cherished wife herself, she has only one path and one mission: to become a devoted Christian and instill faith in the true God in these people. In the morning, Volodymyr was saddling his horse. The Pechenegs had crossed the border once again, indicating that war was imminent for the Rusins. However, the prince did not feel any compassion. There, amidst the clashing of weapons, he forgot about everything in the world, about the woman who outsmarted him. Yes, he retaliated. He brought her to her knees, but he could not conquer and subdue her to himself. The princess did not even consider retreating. She did what she thought was right.
The famous Tithe Church once stood here. Excavations of one of the oldest Rus churches are still ongoing. It is believed to have been constructed by Volodymyr. Indeed, Anna constructed the temple based on her own design and essentially at her own expense. She had a scepter, and her brothers assisted her. At the princess's request, marble, mosaics, and icons were sent from Chersonesus. The church was built entirely in the Byzantine style. This became a standard for the rest of the Slavic churches.
The chronicle states that Volodymyr intended to construct this church. Having an idea is one aspect, but where would he find the craftsmen? Import. But where can I find painters? It was imported from Byzantium. None of this existed in Rus. This became possible due to Anna's connections.
Volodymyr was preparing for battle. For several days, he was chasing the Pechenegs, and now the army was simply waiting for his command. The prince gave a signal. The soldiers advanced on the enemy. The sky seemed to be ripped apart by a terrible roar. Lightning cut through the black cloud. Volodymyr was momentarily blinded. Rusins stood frozen in place. This was a sign from Perun. The god of war was furious. He turned his back on the prince and his army. Now they will never win. As if mesmerized, the Ukrainians stared at the charred spot where the lightning had just struck. And then they almost simultaneously started to turn their horses around. Volodymyr did not attempt to return them. He felt powerless himself. For the first time in many years, he felt intense fear. Even in Kyiv, Volodymyr could not recuperate. He saw nothing and no one around. The staff was updating him on a matter, sharing that the Byzantine princess had begun building a unique shrine. Volodymyr was apathetic. He could only see the eyes of the soldiers, who were eyeing him suspiciously. And the prince did not question why this occurred. Volodymyr himself felt like a betrayer. He baptized the Rus. He was hesitant to make a sacrifice to the god Perun, and Perun exacted a harsh revenge for this. God turned his back on Volodymyr. He left him to his own devices. The worst thing is that the prince's army turned against him. The army no longer had faith in the fortune of its leader. Even this time, the banquet resembled a wake. Everyone drank in complete silence, without shouting or singing songs. In the end, Volodymyr couldn't bear it. He emerged. The deafening silence was driving him mad. Volodymyr felt helpless, even worse than when he was a child. Then he had enemies of flesh and blood, but now his main enemy was himself. How to earn God's favor. How do you make vigilantes believe in themselves? Volodymyr didn't know.
The baptism of Rus was not easy for Vladimir. Imagine that you are a Christian, and tomorrow you are required to convert to Islam. How would you feel? Now put yourself in Volodymyr's shoes.
The messenger hurried to the prince's feet. His city was besieged by nomads. These are the Pechenegs, the ones his army was fleeing from. He had to go into battle to secure a victory in which he himself did not believe. Volodymyr was hoping for a miracle. It was the only thing that could rescue the soldiers and propel them into battle. And this miracle will happen. And this miracle will be performed by the person from whom he least expected help. The somber warriors were quietly saddling their horses when Anna approached them. The princess held an icon in her hands. It was the image of Saint Elijah the Thunder-Bearer. The princess gazed into her husband's eyes. Volodymyr couldn't help but admire this. A straight posture, a calm, confident voice, a determined look. It seemed that she had never been so beautiful, and at the same time, so unapproachable. Anna looked at the vigilantes. The icon that the princess brought will aid the Rus army. Elijah will protect the Ruthenians better than Perun, better than any other deity. The vigilantes looked at the prince in confusion. Volodymyr realized that this was his only opportunity, his salvation. He must convince the army to believe in the new god, as there is no other option. The prince approached the princess, took the icon, and raised it triumphantly. Then he spurred his horse and charged forward with frenzied cries. And the prince's incredible zeal took place. The vigilantes followed him.
This church in Kyiv, constructed by Princess Olga, features a unique fresco. It depicts Saint Elijah in a chariot of fire. In the Bible, he rode on chariots of fire, but in canonical icons, he was always depicted as a peaceful prophet. Why is he acting belligerent here? It turns out that the Rus icon artists portrayed him in this way at the behest of the princess. It was a trick aimed at non-believers. It was invented by the Byzantines, and Princess Anna used it successfully.
Regarding the adoption of Christianity by Rus, only one thing can be said. Pagan traditions, pagan rituals, and pagan culture could not be radically altered by Christianity. The Byzantine state, implementing a rather nuanced, one might even say crafty policy, occasionally made compromises. Thus, local deities were essentially replaced by their respective saints. Perun was transformed into Saint Elijah.
Volodymyr looked at the enemy army. He promptly ordered the troops to advance. But the vigilantes seemed not to hear. There was intense fear in their eyes. They did not believe in victory. Volodymyr fell into despair. How to lead an army into battle? How to regain their confidence in victory? And the prince understood. He took out a Byzantine icon and advanced towards his own death. Volodymyr knew that if the vigilantes didn't follow him, nothing would make a difference. The enemies were close. Only death remains now, but it's better than disgrace. The prince yelled like a madman and charged at the enemy.
For Russia!
In the distance, the frantic pounding of hooves and screams could be heard. His soldiers were approaching. They followed their prince. They had faith in him and charged into battle. He screamed like a madman. They did it. They won. They utterly vanquished the Pechenegs and freed the besieged city. But the main thing is that his followers believed in the prince again. They once again believed in his character and in a new patron saint from heaven. This patron saint was introduced to them by Princess Anna.
This is quite understandable, as a warrior requires the assurance of victory. He needs substantial support to do this. Perun did not aid the warriors at that moment, but the icon of Saint Elijah emerged, and the victory was achieved. So belief in Saint Elijah just became stronger? Since then, Saint Elijah has become the patron saint of soldiers.
Anna understood that the pagans needed to be provided with an alternative. Their deities were replaced by Christian prophets, and their belief in supernatural powers was supplanted by faith in Christian saints. Thus, St. Nicholas emerged as the patron saint of domestic animals, replacing Veles. St. Paraskiva replaced the fertility goddess Mokosh, and Elijah the Thunderer took the place of the god Perun for the Rus warriors. Over time, even Perun's day in the calendar transformed into St. Elijah's day.
They returned late in the evening. The prince dashed into the palace, sprinted up the stairs, raced down the corridor, and halted at the door. He could barely contain the frantic pounding in his chest. He entered. There was silence in the room. Anna was sleeping. Volodymyr wanted to stay. Let her sleep. He will watch over her. This is the least he can do to thank her. His wife, his assistant, and his friend. Volodymyr suddenly understood. For the first time in his life, he was not alone. He never trusted anyone. He walked among the dead, killed, and sought revenge. But now the anger has subsided. Anna shifted, placing her hand under her cheek in a childlike manner. Volodymyr couldn't resist. He leaned over and gave her a light kiss. Then, gathering his strength, he left. In the morning, the prince roared like a wild beast. When he woke up, he realized that Anna had vanished, and no one knew her exact whereabouts. He appeared to have lost his mind, furiously lashing out at his servants. Finally, he found a handmaid of the princess. He was astonished when he learned that the desperate Anna had made it all the way to Vyshhorod. She intends to enroll children in a certain school, and she only brought 2 bodyguards with her. Volodymyr's eyes darkened. She didn't comprehend what she was doing. She was unaware of the danger she was exposing herself to.
Children were sent for book education, and their mothers wept for them as if they were dead. This is how Nestor the chronicler would later write about the students of the first Ukrainian schools. Pagans were very fearful of literacy, and the alphabet was almost regarded as a witch's book. Thus, they were prepared to face death rather than send their children to school.
The truth is that the pagan culture of the Slavs was not documented in writing, unlike the written Christian culture. Letters, any written symbols, filled pagans with mystical fear. Therefore, they had to protect and shield their children from the influence of supernatural forces.
When they arrived, attentive people came out of the houses. Anna turned to the parents and asked them to hand over the children. She said that she established a school in Kyiv where children will reside and learn to read and write. However, it appears that the residents of Vyshhorod did not hear. They concealed the children behind them and glared at the princess with hostility and rage. A crowd slowly began to gather. Anna was confused. These people were holding swords and pitchforks. She wanted to leave, but someone seized the horse by the reins. The scared animal reared up. Anna fell to the ground. She didn't recall much of what transpired afterwards. It was difficult to breathe amidst the screams of people, the crowds that seemed to emerge from everywhere. Suddenly, she felt someone's strong hands lift her off the ground. He held her in his arms the whole way. He was happy that he could hold her in his arms and kiss her. He couldn't calm down. If he didn't succeed, he would lose her. No, one could not think about that. So he took her to the palace and placed her on the bed. Anna finally came to her senses. Volodymyr nearly screamed with joy. Tell her, express your gratitude to her, share your feelings with her, but the words got stuck in my throat. He remembered how worried he was for her, what he had endured, and began to yell. He will no longer tolerate the princess's capriciousness. He will kill her himself if his wife dares to leave the castle. In the morning, she woke up feeling broken. Everything was hurting. The pillow was damp with tears, but she stifled her sobs once more. What did she do wrong? The man has neither feelings nor respect for her. He is a tyrant who was merely protecting his property and doesn't care about her feelings. Anna went to the window, looked down, and froze. Outside the window was a crowd of noisy children supervised by vigilant adults. Anna could not believe her eyes. Volodymyr learned about the school. He did it for her, helped her. Volodymyr sat in the hall with his head bowed down. Suddenly he saw his wife. The prince was confused. He tenderly embraced her, finding her lips. Anna responded likewise. His heart was beating loudly. The prince kissed her hastily, passionately, as if he was afraid of losing her. For the first time in his life, his heart was breaking, not from sorrow, but from joy, a warmth, a madness, an unfamiliarity that made you want to cry and laugh. Soon, he will disband his harems and acknowledge his only wife, the Byzantine princess Anna. He will assist the princess in completing the church. The largest of its time, it will be known as the Tithe Church. After all, the prince would allocate substantial funds for the upkeep of the church, a tenth of his income. A school will also be opened there. The first, but not the last. Volodymyr and his wife will build an additional 400 churches and several schools. He will be called the Red Sun. Not a ruthless tyrant, but a wise ruler.
This is a testament to great love and boundless devotion. St. Sophia Cathedral, one of the most majestic buildings in Kyiv. It was constructed under the command of Prince Volodymyr. The first stones of the church were laid in 1011, the year of the Byzantine Princess Anna's death, in her honor.
The temple was modeled after the Hagia Sophia Cathedral in Constantinople, which was Anna's favorite cathedral. It was Volodymyr's final gift to his late wife. To the woman whose love altered his and our history.